Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching She-Hulk episode 8, and wow, okay. So, look, this entire show, I've been appreciating it for what it is, for what it's trying to be. I've been looking at it on its own terms, right? It is an episodic comedy that's, pretty much lighthearted all the way through, and very, very, very little overarching connective tissue as any sort of overarching plots or anything happening, right? Like, we've been getting tiny sprinkles of what's the website called, right? Like, all these people that hate She-Hulk, and we see this annoying rich guy show up over and over, and they're trying to get her blood, and what's his name copied her phone last episode, right? So, or not last episode, but the episode before that. But we've barely gotten any kind of connective plot, and that's fine, right? Like, I've appreciated the show for what it's trying to do, and it's made me laugh, right? And so that's my thing. It's like, as long as it's been entertaining me, then there's not really a problem. It's just a different kind of show than these other Marvel shows. And then this episode comes along, and now, at least especially for the second half of this episode, it really felt like a different show. Now it felt like, okay, but now we're actually gonna do a plot though, which is crazy. So what I'm saying is, yes, this is the Daredevil episode, but this episode was really good not just because of that, which is interesting. So basically what happens, the first half, or maybe even the first 2/3 of this episode, basically, this guy called Frogman, I think it was Frogman, yeah. So he is a wannabe superhero who has rich parents, and his suit malfunctions because, as we'll find out later, he put jet fuel in his little jet boots, right? Which is a really stupid move because, hey, guess what? Different types of fuel go in different types of things. You can't put jet fuel inside your boots, So his suit malfunctioned, and he wants to sue the guy who made his suit, which just happens to be the same person who made Jennifer's suit that we spent the last couple episodes, she had to get her suit for the wedding and for this, and she got all these new clothes and everything was fine, and now she has to represent this Frogman who is gonna sue this guy because he has a rich dad, and the firm is basically like, you have to represent him, right? And so they go to courts, and of course now, the guy making the clothes is angry at her, so she has to fix that because she has no other way of getting clothes that actually fit. And the person representing him, of course, is Matt Murdock. And this is where we get our Daredevil stuff going on, because after this courtroom scene where, when they find out about the jet fuel, they just dismiss the case, right? So that's over. And then that night, Daredevil is hunting down Frogman, and at first she thinks he's the bad guy, right? Because oh, you're hunting down my client? But of course it turns out Frogman is actually the bad guy because he has now kidnapped the guy who makes the clothes, and so they have to work together to take down everyone. And there is some pretty good comedic beats here, and they don't, they did a really good job of Daredevil is willing to, he'll say a witty comment, but he's not cracking jokes all the time. He's just very competent at his job, and basically the joke is how hey, She-Hulk, you don't do this superhero stuff. You've never done this before. You've been dealing with becoming She-Hulk and staying a lawyer, and that's great, but as far as sneaking into a warehouse and taking down a bunch of goons, which, by the way, goons and henchmen, they kind of tell the difference there between goons and henchmen. It's you don't do this kind of thing. So just follow my lead, right? That's, and that's basically the reoccurring joke between the two of them, is how hey, I'm actually a superhero who does this on the regular, even though, and of course it's interesting because Daredevil's now in the MCU. How established is he? How well known is he? He says his name, and Jennifer Walters has no idea who he is. But then again, she's in California, and he operates in New York, so it kind of makes sense that she wouldn't know who he is. So it's still unclear. Would Spider-Man know who Daredevil is? They work right next to each other, right? So, it's stuff like that. How much of Daredevil's history has happened in the MCU? Very unclear. Oh, also, let me rewind a bit. We do get confirmation, I think, for the first time that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed. So all the Sokovia Accord stuff, it's just gone. That's basically what they're telling us. And I think that might be the first time we've actually heard that, because for a while now we've kind of been wondering, like, hey, how does this and this over this, how does all this stuff over here happen that's happened like after Endgame? How does this happen if the Sokovia Accords are still a thing? Because they've never really said that, I don't think, So now, out of the mouth of Matt Murdock of all people, now we know that the Sokovia Accords are gone, right? So that's good. That's like a major actual like MCU-wide plot development, Anyways, so they work together to take down all these goons, and then of course Frogman is an idiot and he jumps out the window and he just falls, and he's like, oh no, because he can't, I guess his rocket boots are still not working. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, they save the day, and the guy agrees to start making clothes for Jennifer again because she helped save him. And and then Jennifer and Matt Murdock get together. They were like, oh, maybe I'll take you out to coffee or a beer or something. And then she's like, actually, let's just skip to the next part. So yeah, that happens. She-Hulk and Daredevil. It happened. And of course he does the walk of shame in his Daredevil costume, and so her friend comes over and she's like, there's a Daredevil, there's like a devil costume guy walking down the street. So pretty funny moments. They did a great job keeping Daredevil as himself while still being able to like fit in this more comedic world, but they didn't like have to turn him into a cartoon, you know what I'm saying? So they did a really good job there. And then something weird happens. So that, like, and she literally points this out to us. Jennifer looks at the camera and she's like, hey, that feels like the conclusion of the episode. Why are we still going? And so, she's like, they're obviously doing this on purpose, where it's like, that feels like a sudden ending of the episode. That's where normally the credits would roll. But it keeps on going. So now we're actually going to go to the big gala, because she won that award where she's like Female Lawyer of the Year. Which, by the way, they get there and there's like 9 other Female Lawyers of the Year, which I think she was surprised by, because I think she thought it was like a one-person thing. So that was interesting. But the event is interrupted because in the middle of her like acceptance speech, it's Intelligentsia, that's the name of it. I was like, what was the name of that group? In the middle of her acceptance speech, the screens turn to this group who they're all wearing masks, obviously, and they're just posting all of her personal information, and they have video of her having sex with some guy. I guess we can assume it's, what's his name, Josh? I guess we can assume it's Josh. Because, like, how else would that have been filmed unless Josh filmed it? Because obviously he was in on it, right? He copied her phone. So, yeah, they're just, like, releasing all this information. Now, admittedly, it's not like she committed a bunch of crimes or anything. It's just embarrassing information, It's just like, hey, we're going to embarrass her publicly, right? Which, obviously, yeah, still a really shitty thing to do. But they were like, oh, we're going to show you who you really are. And she's like, I don't have a secret identity. And she didn't really, she didn't do anything wrong. So I don't know, like, what their end goal is, if they're just trying to embarrass her. Which, obviously, yeah, still a shitty thing to do. So, go get them. But she makes a mistake. She makes a mistake here. She gets so pissed off that she ends up destroying all the monitors, which causes parts of the ceiling to collapse. Which, and then she chases down some of the guys in the masks, which she actually sees running from the event. And so she was like breaking through a wall, and she grabs one of them, and now here's the Department of Damage Control with their with like those sonic guns that we saw in Ms. Marvel. Now here they are, they've cornered her, and they're like, all right, stop, right? So unfortunately, just based off the way that this now looks, it looks like she's an uncontrollable rage monster, which in that moment, I guess you could say she was. But, when you're a Hulk and you lose control like that, not a good look. Not a good look. So they, now she might be imprisoned by the Department of Damage Control, which, we just dealt with all those people in the other shows. So very interesting where this is going to go. But yeah, this was like the most actual plot development that we've had like the entire show. So very interesting stuff. I wonder if Matt Murdock's gonna come back, because he said he was leaving back to New York on this day, so you could say he's already gone. But I don't know how she's gonna get out of this jam. She might have to call Matt back to be like, hey, so I got arrested, you know, like, because now she needs a lawyer, right? Wow, and you gotta wonder, like, was this part of Intelligentsia's plan? Did they call the damage control to like show up to the event? Because they were there like immediately, right? So lots of questions there. I will say, interesting little things here. So when Jennifer's looking at the audience and she's like, hey, isn't this episode supposed to be over? Why is this still going on? And she's like, oh, this is gonna be the plot twist. Maybe there's gonna be a Red Hulk. Which I was immediately like, oh, so maybe? I mean, because that's been one of the main theories that people have been like, you know, kicking around with this show, is that like, oh, they want her blood to make the Red Hulks, right? Which, you know, in the comics they're supposed to be, is it Betty and Thunderbolt Ross, right? Like they're supposed to become the Red Hulks. So I don't know, it's interesting that they pointed that out, but that also might mean that that's not at all what's going to end up happening. But yeah, we got one episode left. Jennifer is, you know, probably arrested by damage control, and Intelligentsia, what was their ultimate plan? Was it just to embarrass her, or why? Why do all this? Right now, especially the way that they were talking, it does not feel like Intelligentsia is being led by some evil mastermind. Like some people thought the leader might come up and, you know, he might be the one behind all this. But, you know, the way that they were talking, it really does feel like her main enemy of the show is just, you know, angry 4chan incel guys, right? Like that seems like that's the main enemy, which, you know, hey, for this show especially like the people on YouTube who have been like targeting this show, that makes a lot of sense. It makes an awful lot of sense for that to be the case, because they've definitely been the enemy in real life for the show. So yeah. All right, let me know what you guys think about this episode of She-Hulk. Lots of stuff happened, you know, so obviously we finally got our Daredevil stuff, but like even past that, like some major interesting stuff is happening, and now we're here at the finale. Now we only got one episode left, and I think that is my one thing about the show, is that like, if you were gonna do this at all, if you were gonna like, you know, get to this major plot point and like have Intelligentsia and all this, like, I have so many questions, and now you only got one episode to answer it. So I don't know, I mean, maybe you will, but it kind of feels like you could have started doing this an episode or two ago, right? I don't know, if you were suddenly gonna do like overarching plot stuff, you know. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about She-Hulk. What'd you think about Daredevil and, you know, them getting together? And what's up with Intelligentsia? Are they really just a group of angry incel guys? It's like that seems to be what the case is. They just wanted to embarrass her. There's no, like, what they want our blood for then? You know, like, what's going on? Anyways, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.